Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff and I'm joined as always by my good buddies Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
These guys debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous aspects of many given topics, and this episode we're debating the Mount Rushmore of It Was All a Dream. What does that even mean?
Well, this was my topic, and the probably a very obvious choice that's going to be my first choice that I'm not going to reveal yet, but I was watching a movie and it featured this sort of trope of someone waking up and couldn't believe what had their experience was.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, it's just a clever way to kind of explore the fantastical, or to explore on, Marvel currently has this kind of the cartoon series, the What If cartoon series, that I find enjoyable, but I don't care about, because I think I just don't care about the idea of what if comics in general. Like, ever since they kind of started coming out in like the 60s or 70s, it's really cool to be like, oh, what if Spider-Man, I don't know.
Well, you like Red Sun, or you like these other
I like Elseworlds titles.
Okay.
But they feel different. They feel a bit more developed. A what if always seems to be something that's like, I don't know, what if Gwen Stacy hadn't died? And it's like, okay, but then the story's over after 22 pages. And you're like, okay, well, that didn't actually affect anything. There were no repercussions. And I feel like, watching What If on,
Disney Plus.
On Disney Plus, thank you, has just kind of, I kind of get that same sort of feeling. Like, yeah, it's the same voice people and the animation's cool, but like, it's not going to actually affect anything.
First and last episode sponsored by Disney Plus, but we want to thank them for the brief and glorious sponsorship.
Okay, what if I didn't just
say
shit all
any
over
of
our fake sponsor?
What if that was all a dream?
Anyway, I think that like and we'll probably talk about a lot of different things, but I think that like the escapism of dreams, or just like the being assured when you awaken from a dream, it's fascinating storytelling.
Yeah, I think it is also perceived sometimes for something that is very relatable, since when I do dream, I am very often comforted that I wake up and I don't indeed have a high school paper due because I'm a 52-year-old man.
Yeah,
I'm very, very comforted that I didn't wreck my car. So as a human being who has experienced that, it's actually more relatable than saying being attacked by a facehugger on a spaceship, well, with some movies. But isn't it often also the cheap ending for?
It can be.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. Of course. I think that maybe one of my choices has.
There may be some of that happening here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So Michael, thunk it up. And now the wind to the Mount Rushmore podcast, to the door to the Mount Rushmore podcast studios has been opened. Is there a dog come in?
The dog has come
puppy.
in. The Mount Rushmore dog.
The Mount Rushmore dog.
Oreo.
He doesn't want to be picked up. Or does he? Okay. He just wants me to end this recording and come inside.
He wants you to just constantly try to pick him up without actually doing it.
Fail.
He wants you to make that effort over and over.
Okay. So, Richard, what are we going to start with?
My first one is Inception.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Good choice.
Not just a dream, but a dream within a dream.
Yeah.
Or possibly a dream within a dream within a dream.
Okay.
I still can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And obviously we get to the very end scene of the movie after all of these different iterations of dream sequences and going inside people's dreams and all the stuff that's going on. And we're left with that final question.
Yeah.
Did Leonardo DiCaprio's character, is he living in a dream right now? Or is this actually his real life? And we all know the thing with the ring or the spinning top that's kind of, is it wobbling? Is it not wobbling?
Sure.
We know the whole thing. And I thought it was relevant to start off with this one because I think it's the most direct sort of play on the trope of the dream sequence.
Yeah.
I personally, I had this conversation with my wife, Sarah, as I was doing some research for the show today. And I don't know that Christopher Nolan's movies, for the most part, I think a lot of them are tough rewatches.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that they hold up to multiple viewings.
Like almost like an M. Night Shyamalan thing.
Yeah, like Memento. Like, it was brilliant
Yeah.
the first time I saw it. Watching it the second time, it was like I knew the trick.
Yeah.
I feel differently about Inception. I feel like Inception is such a clever movie, and it's actually got something to say about kind of what dreams mean.
Yeah.
So I feel a little bit differently about that. But I just didn't think we could. I didn't think we could talk about dream sequences and kind of things all being a dream without talking about Inception.
The scene in Dark Knight where he wakes up and realizes he's Clark Kent was really weird.
Right.
Yeah. I think Tenet for me has that same.
Haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's
Same here.
you're kind of shouldering the burden of the filmmaker's gimmick for me, and it ultimately becomes like a really clever parlor trick, and you feel like you're kind of seeing how it's done at the same time you're watching the trick. But for me, at the sacrifice of empathy for the protagonist and what he's doing, I just kind of did.
Right, and I think Inception is, for whatever reason, seems to be maybe the exception to that rule.
Yeah.
And I can't quite put my finger on why it is. So
For me, forget what film book, I think it was Save the Cat or something. They talk about double mumbo jumbo, how with a movie the audience will accept a mumbo jumbo,
right,
but
Multiple mumbos.
Multiple mumbos and jumbos. Like already, if a storytelling requires you to suspend your disbelief to believe that 24 frames per second is motion on screen and all this kind of stuff, but when you have to do it 2 or 3 times,
right,
it's like, come on. That's when it gets a little bit fatiguing. But okay, Michael, what's your first choice?
My first choice was the inspiration for me to choose this, which is The Wizard of Oz.
Also on my list.
The movie, not the books, because the books kind of indicate that she actually
did go to Oz.
Oz.
Oh.
But in The Wizard of Oz, the movie, Dorothy Gale gets kind of knocked on her head in the midst of a tornado and wakes up with her house twisting through that tornado, and as her mean neighbor lady, I can't remember her name, but the lady that also plays the witch, turns into
just call her the Wicked Witch.
The Wicked Witch of the East flies past her, and she lands in this this Technicolor world of Oz, and she goes through and meets all the people that befriend her, who are also her, like the kind of farm hands, and all the people that she'd met to that point also become characters in her in the land of Oz, or most of them do,
except for Glinda. Don't know where Glinda came from.
Yeah. Okay.
Might have been a teacher or something that we don't see.
Yeah, but there's, you go through the entire mumbo jumbo of the movie, and then she goes back home and wakes up, and it was all just a bad dream, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there. But there's there's just that moment of like, dreams so often have that sort of importing your own memory into them.
Yeah.
Like, they don't come out of nowhere. You don't just dream about necessarily, or maybe you do, I don't know. Normally, there's things that you take from your own life that you're putting into your dream. It can be fantastical, haunted house or whatever, and obviously this land of Oz. But she took the people that were impacting her the most, the friends, the family, the kind of, he's not quite a gypsy, but he's a, kind of a traveling magician, fortune teller sort of guy.
Her dog,
all of it. She just she dreams it into reality, and then she's thankful to come back to it, because she didn't know what she had. But the movie's great. My kid watched it all the way through for the first time.
Oh, really?
He'd watched it before, but he'd tune out or whatever. He just couldn't wait to get to the part where the trees were throwing apples.
He wanted to see that?
Oh, he loved it. He loved the trees throwing apples.
They scared me. I in my stand-up comedy, I had quite a long stretch with my big closer about The Wizard of Oz, and the scariest thing in The Wizard of Oz not being the witch or Judy Garland's drug habit or the flying monkeys or whatever, but the Lollipop Guild. And wondering, when's the origin of Lollipop Guild? Because even the other Munchkins look at them like, who are these guys? And they're not even the Lollipop Guild. They merely represent the Lollipop. But I love that. I don't know when that story was written, but I imagine there's plenty of stories about people on a farm being attracted by a big city like Emerald City is.
1920s, I believe.
1920s, yeah. And I do wonder how fresh that trope was at the end.
Well, what's interesting, I read a little bit about it, that the filmmakers added the idea of it being just a dream and all that because they didn't think the audience would take, you talked about mumbo jumbo.
Oh.
They didn't think the audience would just believe that this girl actually physically gets transported to the land of Oz. So they turned it into a dream in order to like be able to, for the audience to be like, to reconcile and deal with it back in the 1930s or whatever.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Let's dumb it down for the folks a little bit. Okay, they understand what dreams are. Yeah. Okay.
I imagine at that time too, when talkies and color were relatively new, that opening in black and white, and then the move to Technicolor once she survives the tornado and lands in outside Emerald City.
I saw a great bit on how they filmed that, which is a character that wasn't what's her name?
Judy Garland?
Judy Garland is painted in sepia, and she walks up to open the door, and she opens it up, and it's all in one shot, and then she walks through just in full color, and but everything else that's painted behind, and the person opening the door wasn't her, but they made to look like it were. Just tricks of the trade.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
I like it.
All right, Manfredi.
No, I get to go again now.
Okay, awesome.
Same one. My second choice is the TV show Newhart.
Also on my list.
Why don't we do this? Why don't I choose a different one, and then you can start off.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because that
sounds kind of weird.
Okay, we had a double. Okay, Michael, what's your next choice?
My second choice is Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
wow. Another sort of young girl getting
conked in the head or something.
It's not even that. She's falling asleep like doing her homework. Yeah. At least the Disney version of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's another way to tell a story of how you can get an audience into like a magical world. Is like, oh, she fell asleep. We understand how that happens, and in at least the Disney version of it, she's doing her lessons and her logic lessons with her teacher, and she falls asleep, but it doesn't seem like she falls asleep because she immediately sees the white rabbit and is off chasing him down the rabbit hole into Wonderland. And again, kind of like in Wizard of Oz, and maybe I'm doubling up here, maybe to my discredit, is that she starts bringing the things into her dreams from the real world. The Alice in Wonderland itself tends to be like, what's the word? It's like a play on like logic games and logic puzzles.
Sure.
I think that the writer was a mathematician.
Yeah.
A mathematician.
Math dude. He was a math dude.
Some egghead.
There's a lot of rhetoric.
Math nerd.
Playful rhetoric and things. Yeah.
There's like the logicness, and she's always trying to solve the logic of the place that ultimately has no logic. Mm-hmm. So she's taking her lessons that she's engaged in with her teacher into this world and it just starts to fall apart until she ultimately, wakes up and is chided for it. And then she's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going home. Come on.
Yeah. The teacher is trying to convince her of the importance and relevance of the lessons that she's learning. And it does seem like all the characters on the other side of the looking glass all have their stresses. They're all in a kingdom run by this horrible person. They all have these things that are kind of driving them crazy. So it does seem to be a commentary on modern life and the stresses that the people in the real world are suffering under.
And I think that, just there's an escapism there, but it's an escaping to a world that you have no control of, and I think dreams do that. They change on you, and they mutate, and they have their own rules, and you're just, you have to just deal with, suddenly you're 2 inches tall, and then the guy's like, nope, that table's over there. And she's like, what table and what thing? And the thing that wasn't there that you swore was there, and that's dreams for you. And
I recall in dreams things having an emotion, sometimes being emotionally grounded, but not physically real. Like it was, it was you, but you were a gorilla. But we were always kind of just pretending like that was no big deal for some
I think
reason.
you were always a gorilla.
You think you're always a gorilla, yeah. Or this is the Walmart my dad owns, and I just work here, or something weird.
I think in dreams, it seems that people tell you what's going on, and you're just like, okay, all right, that's the walrus and the carpenter.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
What's next?
We got oysters. Okay, Richard, what do you got?
My third choice, and I think this is the first one that I thought of when this topic was broached, was Bobby Ewing.
Oh.
Coming back in the shower and basically ruining a whole season of Dallas and invalidating it.
I lived through it. I never watched it. What happened?
So he had been killed off earlier in the season. Early on in the season. Might have been actually the tail end of the last season. Because Patrick Duffy, the actor who played Bobby Ewing, had dreams of doing movies.
Oh.
As he had a bit of the Shelley Long complex, I guess.
Okay.
And so he left the show, and the show's ratings really suffered. In the meantime, his movie career didn't exactly flourish. So he actually went out to dinner with Larry Hagman one day, and Larry Hagman was like, basically, we'd love to have you back on the show. And Patrick Duffy's wife basically said, well, the only way you can do that is if the whole last season was a dream. And for some reason, that's what they decided to run with. So if you guys are a little too young or don't remember watching Dallas, the last scene of the 1986 season features Victoria Principal going into seeing someone in the shower, opening the door, and it's Patrick Duffy. He just turns around and says, "Oh, good morning." And that's for a character who'd been run over by a car at the end of the previous season. And she just like... But apparently, nobody at CBS knew that they were filming that scene, or that they were bringing Patrick Duffy back.
Whoa.
And according to Patrick Duffy, they actually inserted the shot into the end of the episode only like an hour before it aired.
Mm-hmm.
That's how top secret everything was.
Wow.
And they didn't really address what exactly that meant that he was back.
Yeah.
Until the start of the next season. So the whole kind of season summer cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Was it really a dream? Was he a doppelganger? Had he really not been dead?
Yeah.
CBS even went so far as to run an ad saying, well, one of these three theories is correct. You'll have to tune in to the season premiere to find out which one. And it turned out that the one that was correct was that it was all a dream.
It was all a dream.
Which basically meant that everything that had happened the previous season ceased to matter.
Yeah.
Which, it turns out, if you're a fan of the show and you've invested a year watching it, and you're told, oh yeah, none of that matters, we're just hitting the reset button and going back a year. Even Jenny Lee Harrison's character had been killed off during that season, and they had to bring her back like nothing had happened.
Uh-huh.
And the show, it didn't help the ratings. If anything, it made it worse. It made fans resentful. And that was kind of seen as the beginning of the end for Dallas as this kind of cultural landmark.
That's some cool history I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. I'm trying to think of other things where they erased a whole season. Have they done anything like that, or even episodes other than Star Wars? Legends.
I've got one coming up.
Okay.
I think that falls into that category.
Cliffhanger. You'll have to wait till after that.
Am I actually dead? Wait for my fourth pick to find out.
Been replaced by a cybernetic organism. So we are at our halftime, and this point is when
slightly past halftime. That was Richard's third.
That was.
Yeah.
God, I see it. Okay.
The clock just never stopped.
It just never stopped.
The referee
Sorry, guys.
never called timeout.
Sorry, dudes.
No, we're cool.
Sorry, my friends. But I know you want to hear where you can find more Rushmore podcasts. You can download, rate, and review more episodes right where you got the one you're listening to, and then you can also find more by making more. You go out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and then recommend future episode topics that we can then put into our microphones and send out to you. Past suggestors have become participants in the podcast. It was really cool. I hope we do it again. Okay, so Richard has 3, Michael has 2. Michael, what's your third?
My third is The Matrix. the entire world that everyone lives in.
Yeah.
For like the
yeah.
humanity basically
Yeah.
exists in this dreamlike state of, their dreams are
Yeah.
the world at the end of the, 20th century.
Yeah.
Are they actually dreams, or is it a construct?
Well,
I'd
that's a
like
good
to
question.
challenge. I'd like to challenge this one if I can.
Okay.
Challenge away.
Throwing my challenge flag.
Well, isn't it
Right now.
neurologically implanted synapses and things? I mean, that's what we engage in, right? When in a dream, it's a neurological set of impressions that is created inside your brain. Right?
Yeah, but it's not created by an outside force.
What?
Our dreams.
Oh, our dreams.
Our
They're
dreams,
not-
yeah,
They're not synthetically.
they're not synthetic. They're not.
If if the phone's ringing and I hear it in my dream, I'm kind of hearing it from the outside.
True.
Force or so.
True. Okay.
Okay. All right, but that's debatable. All right.
Yeah, good debate, guys.
Asterisks.
I'm
Asterisks.
glad I could stay out of it.
Yeah.
That's the best part for me is when I don't have to fight my own wars. Well, the concept anyway is that Neo or humanity in general is kind of plugged into this computer program, and they are effectively dreaming their lives away, so to speak. If not literally dreaming, they are effectively living in this kind of dream world of whatever their reality is. And then at some point Neo gets unplugged from the dream world. They send this tracer program, which does take the form of kind of these Alice in Wonderland type images of like the White Rabbit and a lot of like walking through mirrors and things that are just they even use the thing terminology of like you're going down the rabbit hole and how far does it go and what is the matrix. All this stuff is kind of used the imagery of entering Wonderland is used as like synonymous with entering the matrix or breaking free of the matrix ultimately. So when Neo does finally wake up, he is shown what I think there's an element to this topic of being, and it was all just a dream too. Be kind of awakened to your state, to understand what you would kind of, you'd
enlightenment and awareness.
what you travel to, and he ultimately awakes to a nightmare where his dream was the one that was more boring and straightforward and non-interesting, and and the real world ultimately was more disastrous and apocalyptic, and he can't necessarily believe it at first, but then he obviously gradually accepts and is then willing to travel back into that dream world to try to fix it or unplug people and kind of save humanity, so to speak. But I think that there's just there's an element in a lot of choices where you awake from the dream to that it's like a relief that like, oh, I got out of it, I escaped it, I'm back to things being normal and boring. And with the Matrix, they kind of turn it around, and he's like, oh no, one of the characters can't wait to get put back in. He understands what reality, the real world is. And he's like, I just want to be plugged back in. I can't deal with this anymore. I don't want to live eating, gruel and I don't know, flying around this cruddy ship. I want the dream. Mm-hmm. So,
and this is 2.0. Wasn't the first simulacrum created by the overlords a perfect one?
There were there was like there've been multiple matrices and multiple people that are the one and whoever that have gone in and basically it was too good.
It's too good,
and people like their brains rejected it.
Wow, because it just didn't seem real. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. We got another one coming, right? Keanu, Matrix 4.
Yeah, who's excited for that? Yeah, no, seriously, who's excited for that? No, it'll be good.
It's good. I like the preview for it because it seems like it's Keanu playing a confused guy again.
Just getting back to that, yeah.
Back to his roots of just like, what's going
on? Are the Wachowskis directing this? They must be, right?
I can't remember which one of them are. I think it's Lana. I think she's just directing it. I don't think her sister is. Anymore.
Okay. Awesome. So then, Richard, let us know your final choice.
All right, my final choice is, you mentioned a whole season being invalidated. What about if it was the whole series itself.
Mm.
So my final choice is the finale to Newhart.
Also on my list.
There you go. The finale where Bob Newhart, after his character winds up getting hit in the head with a golf ball because the entire town that he lived in had been sold to make way for a golf course. Gets hit in the head with a stray golf ball and wakes up in bed with Suzanne Flechette, his wife from the old Bob Newhart show, and declares that he had this crazy dream that he lived in Vermont and owned an inn.
Yeah.
And that also she should start wearing more sweaters.
Yeah.
Which is the kicker. And I was a huge fan of Newhart when the show was on the air. I was 14 when the finale aired. And I remember laughing because also the Bob Newhart show was on Nick at Night at the same time, so I had started watching that as well.
Cool.
So I was familiar with both shows.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a huge Bob Newhart fan.
Yeah.
And just full stop. And I just remember laughing so hard at the reveal of Suzanne Flechette being in bed with him and that it was all like this big dream sequence. One of the funniest things I've ever seen on a TV show.
Yeah.
Just a perfect way to end a series.
Yeah.
A series that was more surreal and weird than you remember it being. If you go back,
right?
if you go back and rewatch it, there's just a lot of weird stuff. Like not surreal necessarily, but just, I mean, you had the brother, Larry and Daryl, and that was weird. And a lot of stuff that was happening with Tom Poston's character. He was an oddball weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a straight sitcom.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
What I think is great about the ending as opposed to the Dallas one is it doesn't invalidate the entire series. It still happened. All the characters were weird and strange and everything. And it just adds a little extra flavor to the idea that because dreams often have that, that time element that you don't necessarily, it's not 1-to-1. It's rarely 1-to-1 where you're in a dream for, you're asleep for 6 to 7 hours and you're dreaming for 6 to 7 hours. You're dreaming for 20 minutes, but it can be an entire day. It could be whatever. Mm-hmm. So the time element of it was all just a dream and he could have dreamed all of this. And this is one, he kind of wakes up and he's like, it's like coming out of a nightmare for him, but that it doesn't take away what had happened the way that it did on Dallas when it just writes off. And then you continue to go on as if that didn't happen. That's what's, I think, where Newhart was successful.
Right.
It put a nice little coda at the end of the show and one final punchline to say, oh, all this weirdness that happened in Vermont was all in my head.
Yeah. I don't know if everybody who knew the entirety of Newhart's career, but I think by the time Newhart was doing this, the idea of a comic doing his act and then a comic being a person who you would put into the construct of a sitcom and then those being somewhat interchangeable was probably in the popular vernacular. So that the idea, like Gary Shandling, where he's Larry Sanders, he's Gary Shandling, it almost seems like we're all winking. The sitcom is it's a set that pops up around him.
Right. Bob Newhart is always playing Bob Newhart.
Yeah.
In any role that he ever had, he was basically doing the Bob. He might as well have picked up a phone in every episode.
Yeah.
And just started talking to someone off camera.
Yeah. The wacky neighbor was going to be interchangeable. The wife was interchangeable, but we know he's a stand-up comic who's this is a tableau that's being constructed around him. Early Bob Newhart was saying he wanted to be Bob and Ray, but the other guy in his comedy group left. Oh, so he instead
that's how he invented
the telephone gag.
Telephone gag.
Yeah, I think Shelley Berman or somebody was doing it too. But it was a way to get a partner in his comedy routine, or to keep these sketches that he'd written. That
that's
were
wild.
2% sketches. But yeah, that's a funny thing too. It's also were they on the same network? Those shows, I forget.
Yes, they were both on CBS.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Okay, hey. We did it, guys, and we had.
Or did we?
Our dream is that you keep listening to the Mount Rushmore podcast. So please don't let us wake from that. We appreciate you doing it. My dream is that Michael will even go farther down this kind of young fiction with female protagonists rabbit hole. Because isn't it cool that there was a time when authors were writing stories about women or young girls being curious and exploring the world? It seems like those stories are few and far between now. But we'll go with Alice in Wonderland, and then we'll go with Wizard of Oz. That's a double for these guys. And 2 stories where female protagonists are out there mixing it up. And I guess we're going to go with Newhart. And then the 4th one would be Patrick Duffy, because I got an edumacation on that. I didn't know that big cultural landmark actually existed. So, guys, it has been a fun evening. Yeah. Oh my God. Was it or was it? This has been the Mount Rushmore of Southwest Flight 747 going to Dallas Fort Worth. Please buckle up. We think we got a strong headwind, so it may take us just a few minutes longer, but we should get you in there in time. And as always, I'm Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
Yay!